Please don't come to your dad's birthday party, my mom messaged. No one wants you there, my brother added. I didn't protest. I just left them a blue box. When they opened it, my dad tried to disown me and my mom started screaming at the guests, asking them to leave. I wish I could say I threw my phone across the room. I wish I could tell you I screamed or cried or at least had some kind of satisfying dramatic reaction. But honestly, I just stood there, halfway through microwaving yesterday's leftovers. The kitchen clock ticked. The microwave beeped. And the family group chat sat there glowing on my cracked screen like a punchline to a joke that stopped being funny a long time ago. It shouldn't have shocked me. It really shouldn't have. But it did. It wasn't just the words, it was how casually they said it. No anger, no guilt. Just a reminder. Like they were telling me the weather forecast. Hey, bring an umbrella. Also, don't come. Nobody wants you. And the worst part? Some small, stupid part of me still cared. I stared at the phone until the microwave beeped again, louder this time, like it was trying to jolt me back into my body. My hands moved automatically, closing the chat, setting down the plate, while my mind stayed stuck in that moment, replaying it over and over. I don't know what made me do it. Pride? Spite? Some pathetic urge to give them one last chance? But I called. It rang twice before my mom picked up, her voice already edged with irritation, like I was the one causing a scene. What now? She said. I don't understand, I managed. My voice sounded thin even to my own ears. Why would you say that? Why am I not welcome? For a second there was just silence. Then a sigh. The long, theatrical kind that says I'm tired of dealing with you. Look, she said. We're going to have important people here tonight. People who could really help your brother's career. We can't afford to complicate things. Complicate things? I repeated, numb. That's when my brother's voice chimed in from the background, sharp and unmistakably smug. Yeah, seriously. You're still a waitress, aren't you? What if someone recognized you? And just like that, whatever piece of me had been holding on, cracked. Because yes, I still worked as a waitress. Not because I failed at life, but because between my actual full-time job and the second job I took to keep their mortgage from collapsing, there weren't exactly a lot of hours left in my day to polish up some glamorous LinkedIn profile. They knew that. They knew. And they still saw me as nothing more than an embarrassment with a name tag. I swallowed the lump in my throat so hard it hurt. Got it, I said. No screaming. No begging. Just those two words, clipped and neat, like I was crossing myself off their guest list. I hung up before they could say anything else. Before they could make it worse. The room felt different after that. Colder. Like the air itself had shifted and I was the only one who noticed. I canceled the payments first. Mortgage. Utilities. Credit cards I wasn't even listed on. All the quiet sacrifices I had made to keep their heads above water while they planned their imaginary yacht parties with my brother's future millions. Each click felt like cutting a thread I didn't even realize had been strangling me. After that, it was almost easy. I found an old, sturdy box in my closet. Wrapped it carefully in bright blue paper, the kind you'd use for a real gift. Taped a small card to the top. For Dad. Please open at the party. No signature. No explanations. Let them wonder. It was almost dark by the time I drove to their house. The street was already lined with shiny cars. The kind you lease just to show off at events like this. Through the windows I could see the decorations. Balloons, catered food, clumps of people in suits sipping champagne and talking too loudly. For a second I almost turned around. Almost. Instead, I walked up the front steps, set the box down neatly on the welcome mat, rang the doorbell once and walked away without looking back. Then I sat in my car across the street. Watching. Waiting. Not for them. Not really. For myself. The dashboard clock ticked forward minute by minute. The sky darkened to a deep, bruised purple. Somewhere inside that house, my parents were laughing, clinking glasses, selling dreams they couldn't afford. Me. I just stared at the steering wheel, wondering if I had finally crossed a line there was no coming back from. I wondered if I'd gone too far. If I should feel guilty. If I should feel anything at all. I didn't even realize I was still holding my phone until it buzzed violently in my hand. For a second I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. I slid my thumb across the screen and brought the phone to my ear without saying a word. His voice exploded through the speaker, raw and furious. You're not my daughter anymore. I will never forgive you for this. In the background I heard shouting, chairs scraping, glasses breaking, and my mother's voice shrill and panicked. "The party is over. Just leave now." And then the line went dead. I sat there, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. For the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt free. You'd think this kind of betrayal would come with warning signs, flashing lights, ominous music, a slow, creeping sense of doom. But honestly, it felt more like being boiled alive 1 degree at a time. Growing up, my brother Kyle was the obvious favorite. You know the type, the golden child, the prodigy, the boy who could do no wrong. It all started with a math competition in 4th grade. One blue ribbon pinned to the fridge, and suddenly my parents were acting like Harvard should be sending limos to our front door. "He's gifted," my mom said proudly to anyone who would listen. "He's going places." My dad would chime in like he was announcing the next Nobel Prize winner. I was standing right there, by the way, usually holding a plate, or a broom, or a crying cousin. Because while he was getting math tutors and robotics camps, I was getting babysitting gigs and stern lectures about how life doesn't hand you opportunities, you have to work for them. Ironic, isn't it? By the time we were teenagers, the gap between us wasn't a gap anymore. It was a canyon. He went to a private prep school that cost more than most people's mortgages. I worked part-time at the local grocery store bagging organic lettuce for soccer moms who pretended not to see me. But I kept my head down. I figured if I worked hard enough, stayed invisible enough, eventually I'd earn a seat at the table. Maybe they'd notice. Maybe they'd be proud. Spoiler, they didn't. Not when I graduated college after years of pulling night shifts. Not when I took on 2 jobs to help keep the family from defaulting on the mortgage during my dad's business downturn, which from what I could tell, mostly involved investing in golf carts and yelling at CNBC. They didn't even notice when I started secretly paying their overdue bills. You know, the ones they thought magically disappeared because things always work out for us. Yeah, you're welcome. Meanwhile, Kyle was being groomed like a prize racehorse. Finance degree at a top-tier college. Luxury apartment downtown because God forbid he should have to share a dorm like a peasant. All paid for, of course. No questions asked. Every holiday, every conversation, every family gathering turned into some kind of investment pitch about Kyle's future. "Just wait till he lands that hedge fund internship," my dad would say, practically salivating. "When he makes it big, we'll all be taken care of," my mom would add, eyes shining like she was seeing a yacht materialize right in front of her. I think they genuinely believed it. That one day Kyle would step off a private jet holding a giant check and rescue them from their own bad decisions. And me? I'd be what? His secretary? His backup singer? Maybe the humble waitress serving drinks at the celebration party? I tried not to be bitter. Tried telling myself I didn't need validation. Tried to believe that working 2 jobs, scraping together enough to keep a roof over my parents' heads, was its own kind of success. And maybe it would have been, if the universe hadn't decided to hand me a truth bomb one Friday night I'll never forget. It started with a phone call. A number I didn't recognize, buzzing aggressively while I was trying to balance a tray of drinks at my second job. I ignored it at first. Second call. Third. Finally, on my break I answered. "Hey, are you Kyle's sister?" The voice was young, frantic. Some guy I'd never met. "Yeah, why?" "He's wasted. Like really wasted. He listed you as his emergency contact. You need to come get him or he's gonna get arrested or something, I don't know." Perfect. Exactly how I wanted to spend my Friday night. Rescuing Prince Party Animal from whatever designer rooftop bar he'd managed to get himself banned from. But I went. Of course I did. Because that's what invisible siblings do. We show up. We mop up the mess. When I found him, he was draped across a velvet couch like a frat house Picasso, clutching a beer and loudly arguing with a plant. The bouncer gave me a look like, "Please just take him and go." Dragging him into my car was like wrestling a drunk octopus. Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th attempt to buckle his seatbelt, he started laughing hysterically. "Sis," he slurred, "you're the real MVP. Seriously. No lectures tomorrow. No classes. Nada. I'm free." I frowned. "Aren't finals next week?" He snorted. "Not for me. I dropped out like months ago. Screw that place. I'm living the dream now. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember parking. I just remember following him into his overpriced apartment, still trying to process what he said and seeing it, the letter sitting carelessly on his kitchen counter. Official college stationery. Formal tone. Withdrawal confirmed. Effective immediately. Academic performance. Unsatisfactory. I picked it up with shaking hands, half hoping it was some kind of prank. It wasn't. He dropped out. Months ago. Meanwhile, Kyle passed out face first on the couch, still giggling to himself about how smart he was. His phone buzzed against the cushions, screen lighting up with half a dozen new notifications. It was unlocked. I know I shouldn't have looked, but I did. The group chats were full of videos. Him bragging, mocking, drinking himself stupid. Private conversations he never thought would see daylight. I sent them to myself quietly, heart pounding the whole time. And somehow, even in my stunned horror, I could hear my parents' voices in my head. He's doing so well. He's going to make us all rich. We're so proud. Proud of what? An expensive dropout with a drinking problem and a complete lack of shame? I set the letter down carefully, like it might explode if I touched it wrong. Took everything I had not to scream. Not to shake him awake and demand an explanation. But I didn't. Because deep down I already knew. It wasn't about him. It never had been. It was about them. Their dreams. Their pride. Their desperate belief that they could buy success if they just wished hard enough. No. Now they were betting their entire future on a lie. They say timing is everything. And apparently so is presentation. Because from what I heard later, my blue box made quite the entrance. Picture it. A house full of important people. Dad handing out scotch like he's some kind of Wall Street kingpin. Mom floating from guest to guest, laughing a little too loudly, desperate for someone to ask about her son's bright future. The music soft in the background. The smell of catered finger foods in the air. Everyone dressed just a little too nicely, sipping just a little too carefully, pretending they weren't all there to size each other up like cattle at an auction. And there, sitting innocently by the fireplace, was my gift. Wrapped in shiny blue paper. A neat little note taped to the top. For Dad. Please open at the party. Apparently, a few guests even commented on it. What a sweet daughter you have. So thoughtful. Yeah, thoughtful. Let's go with that. I wasn't there to see it, of course. But based on the phone calls I got afterward, and the absolute meltdown that followed, I can piece together the moment pretty clearly. Dad, grinning like a man about to accept a Lifetime Achievement Award, pulled the ribbon loose with a flourish. Someone clapped. A few people leaned in. Inside the box wasn't papers. It was a small flash drive, tucked into a velvet jewelry box. It looked sentimental. Sweet. Maybe a photo montage or a video message. Dad, puffed up with pride, waved it around and joked about his thoughtful daughter finally appreciating him. Someone suggested plugging it into the TV right there so everyone could see. Dad loved that idea. They did. The screen flickered. Soft music started playing. At first, it did look sweet. Photos of us as kids smiling awkwardly at family holidays. Then it changed. Screenshots. Emails. The official withdrawal notice from Kyle's university. Complete with red stamps and signatures. And then the real show started. Videos. Clips of Kyle chugging beer out of a plastic flamingo. Passed out on a yacht that definitely wasn't his. Loudly telling anyone who would listen that college was a scam and he was just taking the money for fun. And the audio recordings. In them, Kyle's voice was crystal clear. My parents are such idiots. They'll believe anything. I just tell them I need more tuition money and boom. Instant cash. Like, what are they gonna do? Cut me off? They need me to be rich. Another one, recorded even later when the drinks were really flowing. Even if I made it big, which, let's be real, probably not, I'm not giving them a cent, screw that. I'm moving to Bali or something. They can drown in their debt for all I care. Charming, right? I imagined the look on Dad's face as he realized the son he bragged about to anyone with ears thought of him as little more than a piggy bank with dementia. Apparently that's about when the shouting started. Dad demanded someone turn it off, but it was too late. Everyone had already seen. Mom tried to smooth it over, tried to laugh it off like it was a prank maybe or some deep fake nonsense. But the documents had seals. The withdrawal notice from Kyle's university wasn't forged. Neither were the emails confirming his academic dismissal months ago. He hadn't been a student for a long time. But he sure had enjoyed spending tuition money like it was his personal trust fund. One of the guests, a partner at a hedge fund ironically, asked quietly if the internship offer was still on the table. Mom said something shrill and desperate. Dad knocked over a tray of wine glasses trying to grab him. The man left without another word. So did the next couple. And the next. The party deflated faster than a bouncy house at a kid's birthday party when someone lets their dog inside. And then, cherry on top, right there in the middle of the carnage, Kyle stood up. Still slightly drunk, still slightly cocky, but just sober enough to mean every word. You know what? He said loud enough for everyone left to hear. I never wanted any of this. Finance. Hedge funds. Suit and tie? That was your dream, not mine. I just wanted you to shut up and leave me alone. Mom gasped. Dad looked like he was about 5 seconds away from stroking out. I'm not your retirement plan, Kyle added. I never was. And then, with a sloppy little bow and a middle finger aimed squarely at both of them, he walked out the front door. No apology. No regret. Just gone. I didn't hear about all the finer details until later, from a neighbor who wasn't supposed to be gossiping but absolutely was. Thanks, Mrs. Perkins. You're a real one. What I did get immediately was the aftermath. Voicemails from Mom. Texts from Dad. A flurry of half-coherent, half-blaming, all pathetic attempts to pull me back into the burning wreckage. You need to come fix this. You're part of this family whether you like it or not. You're not my daughter anymore. Spoiler, I dared. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen all the way through. I just set my phone down on silent and let the notifications pile up like snowdrifts. They had built their empire on a fantasy. On the back of a boy who never wanted to be their golden ticket. On the assumption that I would always be there to patch the holes, smooth over the cracks, shoulder the burden. Now it was all falling apart. Not with a bang. Not even with a whimper. Just a slow, inevitable crumble. Piece by crumbling piece. And for once, I wasn't underneath it. I didn't block their numbers right away. For a while I just watched. Let the calls roll in. Let the texts pile up like trash drifting in the gutter after a parade. At first it was all anger. You're not my daughter anymore. How dare you embarrass your family like this? You're just jealous of your brother. That first one made me laugh. Not out loud. Just a short, breathless huff. Because honestly, I was pretty sure I'd stopped being their daughter a long time ago. All that party did was make it official. After the anger came the guilt. We're family, Rachel. You can't turn your back on us now. You know how much we've sacrificed for you. Your brother made a mistake, but we can still fix this if we work together. Right? Because nothing says, let's fix this, like disowning someone on speakerphone in front of 100 of your closest future business partners. First I thought it might die down. That maybe, eventually they'd get tired of screaming into the void. But as the weeks dragged on, the tone shifted. Because anger, guilt, that was just the opening act. The real panic set in when the bills started coming due. Without Kyle's imaginary millions on the horizon, and without me quietly plugging holes in their finances, the cracks became impossible to ignore. Mortgage payments started bouncing. Credit card companies began calling with a little more urgency. Utilities sent warning notices about overdue balances. Even the AITA chimed in, threatening fines over the state of their lawn, which according to Mrs. Perkins had started looking like a set piece from a post-apocalyptic movie. And for the first time in years I wasn't the one racing to fix it. With their bills no longer draining my bank account, I finally had breathing room. I quit my second job, the waitressing shifts I used to squeeze in after my real job, and got my weekends back. There were nights now when I came home and actually rested instead of collapsing into bed like a corpse. There were paychecks I didn't have to split between 3 emergency payments I didn't even cause. It felt like finding whole pieces of myself I forgot I'd ever lost. And still I stayed silent. Summer slipped into fall. Pumpkins appeared on porches. Leaves turned brittle and red and began choking the gutters. I imagined my parents still throwing dinner parties in their heads, still clinging to the fantasy that any day now, Kyle would swoop back in and fix everything. But Kyle was gone. Last I heard he was somewhere out west, living in a group house with a bunch of aspiring DJs and bartending to pay the rent. Finding himself, I guess. Good for him. Mom and Dad, meanwhile, finally swallowed enough pride to reach out again. Not to apologize. Not to make things right. To beg. Rachel, please. You have to help us. We're drowning here. You can't just abandon your own parents. What will people think? We gave you everything. Everything. That word hit differently now. Because the truth was, they hadn't given me anything I hadn't fought and bled for myself. And now they were realizing too late that the safety nets they counted on, their brilliant son, their forgotten daughter, weren't going to catch them. I didn't reply. I didn't answer the door when they showed up one desperate afternoon, hammering their fists against the frame like a pair of angry salesmen. I didn't even peek through the blinds. I just waited until they left. It wasn't easy. It wasn't some glorious moment of triumph where I felt weightless and victorious. It was heavy, messy, but it was mine. Winter crept in. Frost crusted the sidewalks. Christmas lights appeared on the houses down the block, blinking weakly against the early dark. And about 7 months after the party, Mrs. Perkins stopped me outside my building, clutching a grocery bag and wearing that particular expression that meant she was about to spill all the tea. "Did you hear?" she asked, leaning in like we were sharing state secrets. "They lost the house. Foreclosure. Final. Everything hauled out onto the curb by strangers wearing reflective vests. Old furniture. Boxes of dusty Christmas decorations. Family portraits, rain-soaked and curling at the edges. Neighbors whispered. Cars slowed down to rubberneck. Another cautionary tale about living beyond your means. Mom and Dad ended up renting a cramped, crumbling one-bedroom across town. No more manicured lawns. No more dinner parties. No more fantasies about golden futures and financial miracles. Just a tiny, peeling apartment and a mountain of bills they couldn't outrun. I didn't go visit. I didn't reach out. I didn't feel hatred. Or triumph. Just nothing. And that nothing was sweeter than any revenge I could have planned. I spent New Year's alone by choice. Sipped a glass of cheap champagne on my tiny balcony. Watched the fireworks in the distance, soft and shimmering through the cold night air. For the first time in my life, I made a resolution that wasn't about surviving someone else's expectations. I made it about me. Stay free. Stay kind. Stay gone. Spring arrived quietly. The world thawed. The neighbor's kid learned to ride a bike without training wheels, wobbling past my window with a look of pure terror and pure joy all mixed together. And one sunny afternoon, sitting at my kitchen table with the window cracked open and the smell of fresh-cut grass drifting in, I realized something. I hadn't thought about them all day. Not once. Not their disappointment. Not their bills. Not the hole they tried to bury me in. I was free. And this time no one could take that away from me. Sometimes I wonder if I handled it the right way. Maybe I should have gone to them privately. Told them what Kyle had done, shown them the truth quietly without turning their party into a public disaster. Maybe it wasn't my place to humiliate them like that, no matter how badly they treated me. But part of me also thinks, would they even have listened? Or would they have just made excuses the way they always did? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.